Yes, everybody, Russ and the West Ham Network, and it's time to play some Chesney.
Hey guys, this is 𝙀𝙬𝙾𝙀𝘾 here. You are watching My Hammers 11 with the one and only Russ.
And you know, when we play Chesney, we've got a special interview. We've had over 100 ex-players on the channel, and one who's I think the guy we got on today is someone who is part of West Ham history, is as part of the last sort of era before moving to the London Stadium. He's just announced his retirement as well. You probably know who it is anyway, but I've done a video, so I'm going to do that if it works. If it plays, if not, what we do is we'll slip it in post ed. JT, they'll never realise. They'll never realise. It's a smooth operation here at the West Ham Network. It was all really good. It said, you joined when you were 7 years old and and 200 and something. It was lovely. It was lovely.
Because it's that old that it ain't working.
It's James Tomkins. How are we doing, JT? How are we doing, man?
Good, Russ. How you doing, mate? You good?
Do you know what? I'm really good, mate. And I'm really buzzing for you. Obviously, we spoke just before, obviously, about retirement and all that type of stuff. And, it's official now, isn't it? It's all official now. So you've got your head round it, but it's a bit fresh again, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's been a few months. I kind of had it in my head to announce it, and now I've announced it. It's probably the week leading up to my birthday, so it was one way to announce it. But I felt like it had to be done, just because I've been thinking about it for so long, and it's good to kind of get it out there, really.
And how does that process work? Because obviously, you've had a long career. When do you think, right, do you know what? It's time now. Because a lot of players, we've got a lot of players are still playing and maybe dropping down into lower leagues and stuff like that. But you've gone, nah, that's it.
When no one comes in for you. No. It's not. It wasn't the case that. So at the end of last season, obviously at Palace, I wanted to go again, and I kind of had that drive to obviously can continue that, and it just gets to a stage where it's kind of, time goes on and it's only so long you can kind of be without a club, I guess, and then suddenly your head gets round, oh my god, this might have to be the time when this is the season to announce it, really. So I've given it quite a while, really. I've given it until obviously after Christmas, and it feels like it's near the end of the season, which it is. So I've just announced it, really. So
yeah, and obviously, I get that. I get that totally.
Yeah.
And obviously, people will ask, what's next? What is next in your career? Is it staying in football? Is it going into coaching? Obviously, lots of your ex-teammates are. Well,
yeah, my son asks me every day, pretty much. Dave, what are you doing? What are you doing today? But no, I obviously want to stay in the game because it's just that's the obvious thing to do, and it's something that obviously I've known for all these years, and it's best to give a little bit back as well. I definitely think coaching could be an option. There's these different courses that I'm looking into getting into, really. I know there's a sport and directors courses that are available, executive courses, different ones like that, which could be an option. But literally, I'm not going to rush into it. I think it's important for me just to kind of not do that. And, it could be a month down the line of going into something new, and I wouldn't be too sure about it. So I want to make sure it's the right decision for me, and the family.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
I mean, I work very close with the academy, and I'm not being funny. It's like literally everyone who is ex-West Ham seems to move in there eventually. So, and it's not like you know someone high up at West Ham, is it? It's not like there's someone who's like a director or sporting director of his name is. But anyway, don't worry about that. There's a question about Nobes later.
Okay.
Right, so obviously, we are sort of coming into the tail end of the season. West Ham, Potter, Lopetegui. It's been a crazy fucking season. Your assessment of what's happened so far?
Yeah, I think it was going to be hard to emulate, the year and obviously win the European Cup. That's obviously going to be hard to kind of have a season that's going to compare to something like that. So it's always going to be an uphill task, I think, for obviously the old manager. But just started slow, right? And you know, I think Potter's come in, and I feel like the pedigree's good. I know he come off the back of the Chelsea, but I don't feel you can kind of judge him off the back of that. What he done at Brighton was obviously massively impressive, and I think him and West Ham are a great fit together because I feel like in his mind he feels like there's going to be a point to prove.
Mm,
And I just feel like West Ham is the perfect club for him. I
yeah.
think he obviously needs a little bit of time, and this year, you know, you're just gonna have to write this off. Really, I think this season with West Ham, I think it's just a matter of maybe starting to get it ready for next season. That's the most important now because you obviously don't want to repeat it this season.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, no, I agree, mate. I agree totally.
Mm.
Yeah, it's like it is just a long pre-season, isn't it? And I think it's sort
Yeah,
of getting in that
just want it to come
headspace.
to an end, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and then
Yeah,
although now, like in the summer, we're going to have two transfer windows. We've got like
yeah,
one, and then we've got a break for the Club World Cup, and then another one. So it's going to be
yeah, madness.
it's
Yeah,
it's just crazy, absolutely crazy. So,
yeah,
so Basildon boy, you
yeah,
know, in the video package, which I will definitely remember to put up and include in the post edit. West Ham since was it 7? Was it 7 or
yeah.
something
Seven,
like that?
8 years old. Yeah, 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 yeah. Long time. Yeah. I was there
And
19 years at West Ham.
mental, innit? You get
Yeah,
less for
yeah,
murder. Um, I think this year's my 24th year working at the club, and I'm
oh
still
wow.
waiting. I'm still
Yeah.
waiting for that double testimonial. But
You deserve it,
Like Mark Noble
mate.
has one. He only played like
Yeah,
how many
it's only
games?
right
Like
you had
what the
one.
fucking hell? Yeah, I want Dean Ashton. I want Dean Ashton to do a bicycle kick and Darren Blewett to score a penalty. But obviously signing for West Ham as a kid,
Yeah.
coming from Essex, coming from the area, it must have been like this is brilliant.
Yeah, it's perfect for me. It was like a dream come true, and almost, you know, it was just like it couldn't have worked any better for me. And the way I got picked up was obviously a local tournament, and I was almost just invited just to come for a trial, really, and just to see how it goes. I don't know whether there was much hope in terms of what it was going to lead into, and you know, who would have known that I'd have gone through the
Mental.
youth team, and yeah, eventually saw so many people come and go when I was a youngster growing up, and you always think, is that going to be my year this year where I end up having to go and leave,
Mm.
and you know, and then you know, it's a completely different story. But yeah, no, I've just going through West Ham was obviously brilliant for me, you know.
Yeah, and obviously, I mean, now with Potter, and obviously you see the likes of Ollie Scar's now very much integrated. Well, basically, he's a first team player now. He's not an academy player. He's a first team player, and
Yeah,
you know, Kalen and Lewis, and you know, there's a real sort of there's a real sort of conveyor belt of players coming through the academy, very similar to
yeah,
sort of your age group, really. There's a lot of guys around you, years above
yeah.
and years below, who came through. What was it like in terms of being an academy player? Were you into did you how early on were you integrated into like first team training and stuff like that?
Yeah, I think it's probably a bit different. I know when I was been at Palace, it's a bit different how the youngsters are sort of integrated with the
Mm,
first team. But I was, you know, 16, 17, and Alan Pardew was the manager at the time, and he really liked getting the youngsters that he probably thought highly of and get them
mm,
in around the first team. Don't train with them every day, but you kind of, you know, slowly embedded in in the system really. So sort of like you'll train week to week, once or twice, and you get that kind of uh, you know, that drive to want to train more.
yeah.
So you kind of, you know, oh, I've had a taster of it, so I want more of that. And it was kind of like a clever way to do it because, you know, if you get it all at once, sometimes it's going to be a bit of a shock to you. And you know, you're training with men at the end of the day, and you're still
Mm,
16. I think maybe 15, 16. Maybe I was training with the first team. So
wow.
yeah, it's a bit of a shock if you're playing against full grown men like Teddy Sheringham and people like
But
that.
that's
Then
what
you
you
know what I mean?
need, though. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's what you need. I
yeah,
think that's the one issue I have with the academy system now is they don't play against men. You know, they
mm,
play in the same age group up until 21, unless they go out on loan like Freddie
yeah,
or someone like that. You're then put into that situation where you are playing against men, and
yeah,
obviously from you with Pards. You know, Pards, obviously Anton, you had L, you had
yeah,
these youngsters coming through. At least you could see a
yeah.
pathway. A bit like now, really, it's quite sort of come
That's
full
true.
circle a little bit now.
Yeah,
So
it's
that's a good
true.
thing.
That's true, actually. At that time as well, it was West Ham was known for bringing through the
Yeah,
academy, right? And just before me, obviously, Mark was before me. People like Freddie Sears was similar time
yeah,
as me, Junior Stanislas, Jack Collison. Yeah, so all these guys, Savon Hines, it was a lot of players. That sounds like a lot of players now, right? Because it's completely different now.
Yeah.
You don't get so many,
No.
and it's a bit more competitive than it used to be. It'd be interesting now to see if all of us were coming through, kind of, you know.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we were almost fortunate to get the opportunity, and I obviously now I've retired. I kind of appreciate these different things that have happened in my career to lead me to having the career I had, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. And then obviously, you know, then actually I was thinking about it the other day.
Yeah.
You've played your time at West Ham. There was a lot of fucking managers that happened during your time.
I know.
I was putting like a collage together, and I was showing collage. I was like, shit. It was like, yeah, Zola Grant and da 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 da. Da.
On paper, it
But
looks like I've got on the tic tac, doesn't
exactly, it's like, is
it?
it coincidental? Is it coincidental? But obviously, you
Yeah.
made your debut, Everton away, March. Well, it was probably about a week, yeah, about a week ago. Sort of. I think
Yeah,
it's the
yeah,
22nd, 23rd of March, something like that.
yeah,
So again, very timely in terms of your,
yeah. It is
obviously you're
actually. Yeah,
beginning in it. Oh, isn't it?
yeah. I
It's
didn't mean it like
serendipitous.
that, didn't
You should have said I meant it like that, JT. Then at least you can feel wow, forefront.
I?
The call up. How did it?
Yeah, man.
When did you get it, and when were you shitting yourself?
Yeah. It's crazy because Alan 𝙀𝙬𝙾, obviously the manager at the time, away at Everton, and I got no inkling before the day before or anything like that that I was really going to start. There might have been an outside chance, but I kind of
Mm,
never prepared myself for it because otherwise, if I did the night before, there's no way I'd me getting my head down, you know. So we roll up to the stadium, and Goodison is quite you go through tight streets,
mm,
so it's quite an atmosphere, really intimidating it can be at times. And so we pull up, and his way of doing it, Alan 𝙀𝙬𝙾, was you turn up at the stadium, he'll come to the back of the bus, and then he would announce the team there and then. So he'd obviously called out the team, and he's mentioned my name, and I felt like I was floating at the time. I
yeah.
didn't really understand what I was doing, so much so that I forgot to even put tickets out for my family to watch me at the time. So I was my head was a little bit all over the place, just trying to concentrate on my job. But no, it was just that was how he'd done it. So it's good that he'd done it like that because like I say, night before wouldn't have been good for me.
Yeah, and I mean,
Um,
obviously, and then alongside the likes, obviously Anton played that game as well.
yeah,
So
yeah,
obviously Nobes was in there, Freddie was in there. So you had sort of an academy contingent, And again,
yeah,
I mean, I was looking at, I think your first two games were Everton away and Sunderland away. Talk about fucking,
yeah,
cauldrons of away. Those away games are like
yeah,
Jesus. It's
yeah. I
like
know. Yeah.
into the lines then. But then obviously then you make your home debut against I think it was Derby, I think. What was that like coming out Upton Park? First team, the bubbles
Mm.
playing.
Yeah, it seems a distant memory now, but at the time it was just all these feelings of leading up to this is why I done the whole youth and got involved in it. It was just it all led to that moment, I guess. And it was obviously special feelings when obviously you look back on your career. These are the types of games that you kind of look back and are memorable ones because of the atmosphere and the feelings you had. And it's just the best. It's obviously every boy's dream, and I was no different.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I saw a thing the other day, and I bang on about it when people moan about the academy. It's something like 60, no, it's 97% of Premier League academy players never play a single minute of academy football, which just shows you
Wow.
how you have to. And that's now. It would have probably been probably even like 80, 85% probably when you
Yeah.
guys played, but still,
Yeah. It's a
it's
very,
such an achievement to do that. And
yeah.
but then obviously. So yeah, 𝙀𝙬𝙾, and then the Grim Reaper that is James Tomkins. Then Zola takes over the following
Yeah.
season. Again, a very different type of manager.
Yeah.
Obviously you just got. I think you got injured just before the beginning of the season, didn't you? I
Yeah.
think.
Yeah. I kind of
Um,
got injured. Yeah, I've been injured a fair few times, and at the end of the start of the season, I thought I was going to play.
yeah,
I ended up getting like a foot injury, and then it killed my chances, and it took a long time to get back into the team kind of thing, and then I ended up going on loan anyway.
yeah,
But yeah, it kind of killed my chances of having that chance to stamp my or for I guess getting to the team and being a regular
Yeah.
And these moments quite define your seasons and almost
Yeah.
define careers as well,
Mm.
So yeah, I remember doing that, and then I get a phone call from Zola one evening, obviously saying, you're going to go out on loan to Derby, and it was going to be a bit of a shock for me, which it was. But I kind of 8 games in the space of a month. That was when obviously you could go out on loan for a month, and get
Yeah.
experience, which was great for me. And then I come back and then tried to get back into the team.
Yeah, and eventually you did, and I think it was
Yeah,
like January you came back in. I mean,
yeah,
Zola as a obviously as a coach,
yeah.
I think actually, to be honest, I think we were ahead of the game, West Ham, a little bit now, because I mean, now you look at most we don't really have managers as such. We have like head coaches, and we have
Mm.
a direct. We obviously had 𝙀𝙓𝘾𝙇𝙐𝙎, the
Yeah,
man, the myth, the legend. I
yeah.
mean, fucking hell! I remember singing fucking karaoke with him at a Christmas party
Oh, no way,
with
really.
Ian Tomkins. Yeah, um, funny man, very very funny man, 𝙀𝙧𝘾.
Really, really.
Love him, love him. But obviously, very, very, very different setup to under Curbs, and obviously we had
Yeah.
the issues with the Icelandics and stuff. So it's quite a sort of a turbulent time, really, wasn't it, with him? But
Yeah.
Zola, I think, what was he like on the training ground? Because I heard he was almost like the best player on the pitch.
Unbelievable. Like, some of the things he was doing in training was, he was taking lads as well for free kicks after and just showing how they'd done it. It was he just sort of bent them in the top bin every time, and it was just as if it was just like normal, really. So whenever a player went out after him, they almost felt really,
Yeah,
really bad. You know what I mean? Because they're trying to compete against him, and then he'd join in some training sessions. And obviously, when we were struggling one season, the lads actually tried to get him from being manager into the team. They're saying, like, Gaffer, why don't you come and play for us and try and get us out of trouble? You know what I mean? So yeah, he was unbelievable. But as a guy, obviously everyone appreciated him and respected
mm,
him for what he's done in the game, and he's obviously a legend. So the respect level was there straight away, and he was just such a nice guy. So I
mm.
think Steve Clark was brought in to kind of be the hard
Be the
man
bad
in the
cop.
dressing room.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they kind of worked well as a pair at the time. We just obviously didn't. I think we had a few stages actually where we done really well in the football we were playing at
It
times.
was
We brilliant,
good.
yeah.
Mm.
And then that suddenly went. But what guys, he was the top man. He was,
Yeah, I just think he was ahead of his time at West Ham. We had
yeah,
director of footballs and head coaches and people like that. I think, you think now where we are, most clubs have that set up now, and
yeah,
that was in
brilliant,
2009-ish, so
yeah,
well ahead of the pace.
yeah,
But then obviously, then he moves on.
yeah,
JT strikes again, and Mr. Grant comes in.
yeah,
Again, very, we've had Alan 𝙀𝙬𝘾, very sort of level-headed, get your top
yeah,
10 and stay. Zola, football was really good. I liked the football that Zola was playing. Then
yeah,
Avram comes in.
yeah,
Very different, very
mm,
different vibe, I gather.
yeah, yeah. Different, but it obviously came in from the back of the FA Cup run they had with
Yeah.
Portsmouth. So you can understand a little bit why he was appointed. But when he did come in, it was just completely different. I don't know whether the lads on board with his
Mm,
style of training. There's obviously a lot of motivational speeches involved in a lot of the meetings that we had. And I don't know whether the lads took it on board as as well as we should. But obviously that season was obviously emotional because you end up we're getting relegated, and
yeah.
everyone felt responsible for that because I know it's the team, it's a collective thing with manager and players, and everyone says it's the players because obviously they're on the field, but you do realise it is a lot of it is a collective thing. Manager's got a lot to play with that. It's
Yeah.
not just the lads on the field, and I just remember it being like one of the saddest days in my career, to be honest, because
Mm.
I didn't want to ever be associated with a relegation, and to my boyhood team to be a part of,
Yeah,
obviously
even
take
more
them
so. Yeah.
down. You just feel responsible, and I think at that time I got linked with maybe leaving and stuff like that because obviously I didn't want to be in the championship. That was all lots of talk that was going about, but that was never in my mind to leave West Ham at that stage, and I don't think I could ever have lived myself if I would have left that season.
Mm.
I wanted to be a massive part of bringing the club back up.
Yeah. And I mean, I mean, you sort of said it. Being involved in a relegation battle is never nice from a fan perspective, from a player perspective, and particularly, I mean, someone like yourself as well. Boyhood club, and just it must be the pressure must be incredible.
Yeah, you can't get away from it. Like
Mm.
where I used to live, you're getting stopped on the street and saying, "Oh, yeah, James, what happened this weekend?" Or like just different comments. Oh, great result! That you just can't get away from it. So
You can't
yeah,
get away from West Ham, to be honest. I mean, you must know it. Doesn't matter where you go on holiday or wherever you are in the world, you will bump into
no,
a West Ham
yeah,
fan.
yeah, it's true. It's true.
We
Doesn't
are
matter who it
massive.
is. It could be someone that works for the hotel that's West. Like it's everyone.
It's so true. And now with so many, it's like,
Cab
my
drivers,
yeah,
I
cab
get used to
drivers.
it.
Most
Yeah,
cab drivers are West Ham fans. Most football
yeah,
journalists are West Ham fans as well. It seems.
yeah,
Yeah, everyone in it, and now there's so many fan groups everywhere. I mean, my
yeah,
brother lives in Dubai, so we go to Dubai every year. They've got a massive Dubai Hammers are massive out there, and it's
yeah,
and they just take over a whole pub, literally for the whole season. It's mental.
yeah.
But
You
you
can.
always bump into them.
Yeah, no,
Always
it's,
bump into
it's
them.
like they are massive now. Even when I was younger, they don't seem as big as they were sort of
No.
even now. I think the European nights obviously are a massive thing now. Just such a likable club, isn't it? You can see it's like such a family club, even from the
Mm,
outside looking in. You can
definitely.
tell that, and that was always nice growing up with West Ham because you did actually feel you were part of a family, and obviously I was a big part of it for 19 years, and I felt it was my second home pretty much.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And obviously, going down, as you said, there was a sense of
Yeah,
responsibility of wanting to come back up, and
for sure. Yeah,
obviously, then
yeah,
Avram Grant goes, and then obviously Big Sam comes in,
yeah.
and again, obviously we've had I've spoken to Nolan and people about him before.
Mm.
A totally different vibe from Avram Grant.
Completely different. Yeah, completely different. I remember the first thing he kind of said, Sam, when he came in, he got us all together, and he was like, "I keep hearing about the West Ham way." And obviously, he's effing and blind. I don't want to hear about the West Ham way.
Yeah.
He's like, the West Ham way obviously haven't worked for the last season that you had, so it was almost him stamping his authority and just
Mm,
saying, it might not be pretty, but we want results, and that's the main thing. And it kind of, you take things from different managers over the years, and
mm,
I obviously I learned a massive a lot from Big Sam really as manager, because not only did I play for him consistently, but his style of football is sometimes not, from the outside, the fans looking in are not really
mm.
that happy of seeing. They see it as negative, but he was all done by stats and you know just basically playing in the other person, like the other team's half, is you've got more chance of. Basically, it was almost simple, but he was like I said, but ahead of the time in that way.
Yeah.
He was, so I learned a lot from him, and because it changed the way I looked at how I play football, because I was brought up West Ham playing out, looking quite, looking pretty from the back, playing just gradual football up the field. But then he kind of changed a little bit of that, and it just opened my mind basically
Yeah.
about the game.
Yeah. I think we had there was a night with JC or with Ginger and Nolan. They were talking about
Yeah,
the impact of Big Sam, and obviously for someone like Nolan, he was his boy, weren't he? Really, and so
yeah,
um, and I think Gene said he was the best manager he's worked under.
yeah,
Just in terms of he made you feel fucking 10 feet tall, and you could run, but he could do that and just
yeah,
make you feel like that small again. And
yeah.
and but he came in and did a job, didn't he? He got us
He
promoted. I
did,
mean,
he
you
did.
know,
Yeah, yeah,
that was, and to be honest, I think that's the best way to get promoted is through the playoffs. I think that
yeah, 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 yeah.
it's.
It's
I
just
mean,
nerve wracking, isn't it? It's
oh
just
fuck
it's on a
yes,
knife edge, that
exactly.
final was one of the best days of my life. But I remember how nerve wracking it was, and I've looked back at the game. They show it quite a bit now, still, don't
Yeah,
they?
yeah.
And I just look at the game, I just think how nervous that game
Well,
looks.
the
But I'm
game was
guessing it
shit.
all
The
is.
game
Yeah,
was shit. The game was
yeah, yeah,
it was
yeah.
it
It's
was
like,
considering we
yeah,
tuld over Blackpool.
yeah. You thought
Two.
it was going
It
to be
was
easy, right?
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. And I told Colton this story once, and he never believed me until I proved it to him. It was my daughter's due date that day. It was a due date
really?
on the and
Yeah.
I had a really good seat. I was literally front
Yeah.
row, bang in the middle, the second half where 𝙀𝙬𝘾𝙍𝙬 scored. So literally, I had
Oh wow.
like a beer in one hand and my phone in the other hand. And literally 3 o'clock, the phone rang, and it
Yeah.
was like a PPI call because that's when you used to get them.
No
And I was like, oh,
way.
thank God for that. She came a little bit later on, and then I managed to get
Did you get that?
yeah, well, no, she came along later on, a couple of days later, so it was
Oh
all right.
right. Okay.
First one,
Fair. Fair.
the first one's always late, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
we got done it. She got born at Queens, and about when she got out, they then put the trophy up at the Romford store, and
Oh,
I
okay.
went to the security guard Eddie, and asked to get in early
Yeah.
because you just can do when you know people, innit? And I've got a picture of her in the playoff trophy about 2 days
Brilliant.
old. So
Oh, brilliant.
it's like Harry Potter when she gets scarred. So she was scarred at an early age, and
Oh,
what a
that's
day!
nice. That's nice though. Yeah. Yeah. It was just the
Amazing.
best day, and all the family there. I think the expectations are obviously a lot higher. You don't want to let anyone down. You don't want to let
Mm,
the team down, the fans, your family. And it was just, I remember it just felt so nervous beforehand because it's
mm,
so important. But like you say, it's the best way to go up if you can.
yeah.
Because
Absolute
what a day that
relief,
was.
wasn't it? Oh,
Yeah,
what a day! An absolute like relief afterwards, wasn't it? And I know, like, I mean, I remember talking to Anton about the playoff, the Preston playoff in the 05-06 and
yeah,
or no 4-5, and he was saying how nervous he was because he knew what it would mean if we didn't go
yeah,
up. Betty,
yeah,
the tea lady, would be sacked, and it's the same
yeah,
with
yeah,
particularly with you. You've been around the West Ham for so long.
yeah.
All the bloody security guards and
No, it's
and
true.
stuff like that. You had all that pressure on.
Yeah, it's
Um,
true. It's true.
but yeah,
You do take it
best way.
on, and
Yeah, you do.
it was just, I mean, I went to my Nobes's stag do that
Stag dude straight afterwards, isn't he?
yeah,
Yeah.
straight after, yeah. So we obviously went to Dubai for that. So that was obviously so much better. I couldn't imagine what that would have been like if we didn't. You know what I mean? It'd have been.
It's a long old flight if
I
you
don't
haven't
know if
won.
I'd have tried to try and get out of it. I think I'd have been that upset about it.
Can't we just go to faces? Can't we just
Yeah,
do?
yeah.
Oh, brilliant! No, I love it. I love it. And then obviously, I mean, to be honest, that season, I think that's the season that really established you at West Ham, as you said. You sort of in and out. Then you got injured with under Zola. You got a few games in. Then Avram Grant, yeah, you would have played a few games there. But it's that season, particularly you and Winston.
Yeah,
I mean, obviously we got to get into the Premier League, and Sam's been there for a while. And as you said, there's probably about disenchantment with West Ham fans and Sam about the style of football. And it's a bit like what
yeah,
came to the end of David Moyes' tenure. I think it's sort of
yeah.
like almost
They had enough of it.
sees its natural course. And obviously, then we go
Yeah,
into the last season at the Bowling.
yeah,
Slav comes in.
yeah.
Um, I mean, what was that season like from a West Ham fan? The last season at Upton Park, what was that like?
Yeah, like emotional. I don't know how. Do you know what? I can't remember the weeks leading up to it. I just remember
Mm,
really the day because it felt like it obviously happened all of a sudden, and that
yeah.
we were going to leave the stadium, and it just happened so quick. I think, um, but the day itself, I just remember the atmosphere, and I
Oh,
got visions on my head now of like pints getting thrown around as we're going on the coach on the way into the stadium near the Bobby Moore statue and everything near the bowling, and just beach balls. You can imagine everything's flying up
mental.
in the air and people climbing up on statues, and as you were coming in, it was just you just couldn't move. We actually sat there for ages just trying to get into the car park basically, but just massive like the emotions. And obviously I didn't start that game, and I was obviously devastated, obviously being
Yeah.
part of the academy boyhood, like we said,
Mm.
and I just want to be part of it. And he ended up Slaven bringing me on for right back for the last, I don't know how many minutes, like 10 minutes or something like that. But winning that game, how we won that game, was just written in the
Mm.
stars, wasn't it? It was just mental game.
Well, it's sometimes it happens, isn't it? It very rarely
Yeah,
happens with West Ham where everything lines up. I mean that whole season was strange because obviously it's the last time you're playing
yeah,
Swansea at Upton Park. It's the last time you're playing, and so every
yeah,
game had a
yeah,
bit more. Obviously, Everton are doing it now at the moment, aren't they? Really, with going leaving Goodison, but yeah,
yeah.
that last game, I remember. Yeah,
Just
Again, I've always got a story, JT. And with that one, I was on jury service for that week,
Oh, right.
and for some reason my court case, not my court case, thankfully, the one I was being a juror for,
Yeah.
was moved to the afternoon. So I drove
Okay.
up there really early, and I mean, everyone knows you could easily break into West Ham if you had your pass. You could walk around. So I was walking around, and there was no one there. So I said
Yeah.
my goodbyes when there's no one there, or I sat in the seat with you sit with my
Oh, okay.
granddad and stuff like that. So,
Yeah.
and then when I came back, it was manic, and
Yeah.
we had to switch everything around. Had to put the fireworks at the beginning because the council wouldn't let us put the fireworks. Billy Bonds didn't turn up for the taxi, and it was pissing it down as well. We thought we might be
Yeah.
electrocuting the Cockney rejects. It was just mental. Such a mental time. We've had Slaven on recently actually, and he was saying that,
Yeah.
thinking about it in retrospect, that season, like, it was so much fucking pressure, because
Yeah.
it was that last season. As a playing squad, did you feel that pressure in terms of that last season at Upton Park?
Yeah, I think so because you want to send it off in the right way and the right way it should because so much history at
Mm,
that stadium and people that I speak to when I was at like Palace or random people that you'd see on the street and everyone misses it. Everyone loved playing there
mm,
um, just for the atmosphere and it had that close stadium where you can kind of feel the atmosphere and that's what everyone wants in football, right? It's like
mm.
they want that and that was the year I actually went, so it was kind
Yeah.
of it was quite right for me to probably to leave in that way. Obviously, I wasn't getting into the team at that point, but it was probably the right thing to do to leave it at that time because whenever I went back, it felt completely different. When I went back
Mm.
to play West Ham there, felt like almost like a new team in a way because obviously all
Yeah,
I remember
yeah,
was
I get
Upton
that.
Park. Yeah,
I get that,
and
but I suppose
that's
you
it.
sort of had that at Selhurst Park, that sort of tight ground. It was that's an
Yeah,
old-fashioned ground as well.
yeah,
Obviously, yeah, you mentioned that was obviously the last season at Upton Park. It was your last season at West Ham.
yeah,
Um, now, obviously, people have asked me, so I'll ask you a question.
yeah,
How did the exit happen? What happened with it? Because I think I was,
yeah,
I was gutted
yeah,
you're academy boy, you've been there for so long. I thought you'd come with the furniture with me. We could jump
yeah.
jump in a box, and no one would know we turned up. But what happened? Did you know when at the end? I don't know, that Man United game. Did you know you were leaving?
No, no, not at that point, no chance.
Yeah,
And I would have I almost felt like throughout my West Ham life, it was almost trying to improve myself again. And of so many
sure.
different managers, right? You're
Yeah,
trying to prove yourself with every different one. Even with Allardyce, the first season we come back up, I still had to get into the team because obviously Ginge was
yeah,
into the team. I don't know whether Bono maybe it was later. Obviously Reedy was still playing, so it was. Felt like there's always like a proving sort of managers wrong in a way.
yeah.
So I kind of got to Slough when there was a point where I knew I wasn't going to be playing as much, and kind of asked the question, "Am I going to be playing this year?" Like, what you sit down with managers at times, and if you feel like you don't want to, you don't know whether you're going to be playing, then you kind
Mm,
of need to know at the start of the season because you don't want to fall into the season and you sat on the bench every week. And I was a young lad, I needed to
yeah.
play games. Um, so basically, yeah, it happened it felt like it was very quick. It was probably not, but it felt like it was such a sudden thing.
Mm,
And then I thought, because obviously Pardew was the manager and he knew me from West Ham and he tried to get me before, and I think he was at Newcastle. So it was kind of, I felt like this was the time because
mm,
I felt like I knew I was going to play games. And that was the
mm.
most important at that time. And I had to put my feelings, my emotions to the side and just think about my career and just think about the great opportunity that it was to go to another team with Pardew at Palace.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
I think sometimes we as fans not assume, but um, think, particularly nowadays, I don't think there's not necessarily football loyalty or stuff like that, but for
Mm.
yourselves, you had to put that to a side because it's your fucking paycheck. It's what pays the
Mm.
bills, and
Yeah.
obviously job
Yeah.
satisfaction as well. And sitting on the bench. No, I get it, man.
Yeah, yeah. I
And
just
it
had
makes,
to do it for my career. That was the most
yeah,
important thing at that time. And to be fair, I think West Ham fans have been very, supportive for me at the fact that
definitely.
obviously they say the same thing as you know, gutted that I went, but kind of understand why I did go. And that's important to me as well, because I never even wanted to leave West Ham and they think, oh, he's just left us now. It's just because they understood that I wasn't probably paying as much as
As you wanted
I
to.
wanted. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
totally. I totally get
yeah.
that. And was it weird coming back? Obviously, I know it was we're at London Stadium rather than Upton Park, and as you said,
Yeah.
it felt a little probably it was probably slightly more diminished because it wasn't back. I think if we were still at Upton Park, I think you'd probably feel different emotions.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
but coming back and playing for an opposition against your club,
yeah,
is that
yeah.
weird? Is that
Yeah,
weird?
weird. It was weird. Yeah, I don't want to say that I was just. It was easy. It was fine. It wasn't. It was weird.
Yeah.
Obviously, a lot of friends still were playing, and it just felt completely different. And yeah, I just felt a little bit overwhelmed in the fact that I probably didn't do myself justice in the games. But I kind of, it was very an emotional time playing
Mm,
against West Ham when I was just left. Especially the first season. I'd say it took me a good season to kind of try and get my head round that and stop saying that I'm a West Ham player at times. It
yeah,
was
no, totally. I suppose you said it. You said
because I
it
was
for
there when I
19
was 19
years.
years.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was almost just a habit of saying, "Oh yeah, West Ham," and you just start talking, and you just
Mm,
think, "Oh my god," But
mental.
I feel like the transition was made easier because of how well and similar in a way that the clubs are.
Yeah.
Um, there's
Yeah.
a lot
Good
of
point.
family unit there at
Mm,
Palace, is similar to West Ham, which is nice because it certainly helped me with my transition
mm,
into playing for them. Yeah,
makes sense. Makes sense. Who's the? We'll do a few questions because I've got a few questions
yeah,
for people.
yeah.
Best centre half partner you had at West Ham?
Yeah, you said it. Like it was probably Reedy when I was
Mm,
during the championship time because we kind of both of us we stayed fit for most of that season.
yeah.
So when you do that, you do get into like a routine and understanding of how you play, and you kind of complement each other in a way, if that makes sense.
Mm.
And I felt like we did, and we got into like a good run of games, and I thought Reedy was brilliant that year that we went
Oh
up.
yeah.
I feel like I was probably taking a lot of his credit at the time as well, but we had a good partnership going, so I'd probably have to say Reedy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sounds. Yeah, no, I agree. I agree. Right, let's go for a few more questions, then we'll do your Yamas 11. Right, from Mark, you are a hero and a legendary player for us. That's nice.
Nice.
What we got? Right, and I was gutted. Obviously, fan base. Were you a shot? We said that. Was it something you look forward to? Where does West Ham rank in your career?
Where did West Ham rank in my career?
Yeah.
It was my life.
Yes, I mean,
Yeah, it's my life. I appreciate obviously the good, such a lovely comments, and ever since I've obviously announced my retirement, the comments have been obviously
been great.
phenomenal.
Yeah.
I appreciate them all from both teams. But yeah, no, West Ham was my life. Like I come up through the ranks, like we said, and used to train at Chadwell Heath, Little Heath eventually, and just it was such a big part of after school you got me through school almost knowing that I was going to go
Mm.
and train at Chadwell Heath and be part of West Ham, so it was everything.
Yeah, totally. We've got Andrew. How much of a factor is location when you were considering signing for a club? How much a play is influenced by where the club is situated? For example, when you moved to West Ham, presumably you didn't have to move house, relocate your family.
Um, no, I tried to commute from Essex to
Fucking hell, South
South. Yeah,
London.
yeah, exactly. And then it didn't go too well. I was sat in car for an hour and a half both ways.
Oh,
So kind of when you need your body in prime condition, it wasn't probably the best option for me. So I did try it for a year and I had to relocate anyway. But yeah, at that age, I guess when you haven't got kids and everything like that, it plays a different factor to
mm,
when you do. You
yeah.
don't have to think about schools and stuff like that. So when I was younger, it didn't really matter where I was. Obviously you have to look at the club and everything like that, but you need to make sure that you're going to the right club for you. And it didn't really matter where I was. It just happened to be that it was with Pardew, it was London. It kind of just
Mm.
suited everything.
And was it Pardew being the main factor? If Palace has come in and it was Roy Hodgson, it was the fact he just wanted to play for first team football, really, wasn't it? Really, to be fair.
Yeah, exactly that. Yeah, and obviously he's shown a massive interest in signing me, and
Mm,
it weren't the first time. It was, and he knew me, so he did have a lot to play with it. But it was Palace. I knew was a team that I spoke to people about it before, like Danny Gabidon,
Yep.
obviously a West Ham legend as well. Obviously, I rang him and asked about the club, and he said how sort of similar it was to West Ham. And when I got there, I realised that as well. So, it wasn't just Pardew, but it was the whole. It had to be the whole package.
Made sense. Made
Yeah,
sense.
yeah.
For Michael, who was your best mate at West Ham, and who did you have as a mentor, if you had one?
Oh, mentor. As a academy lads, you look at the players, I guess, that have broke into the team. So
Hmm.
Mark had a massive part of me growing up because you look up to him, Nobes, and
Well, you look down to him because you're a bit taller than him.
yeah, look down. But like he obviously looked up to, and obviously Creswell when I was there, and I was that season we went up. The team, the bond that obviously Sam
Hmm.
created in the dressing rooms was very tight, and there's not many of them that you wouldn't call mates. It was just such a tight knit, and had a massive reason why we went up for me. That's what he was good
Hmm.
at, creating that team spirit and that bond.
Yeah. Yeah. Just no trips to Sweden. We know all about that one. Anywho,
Yeah,
moving on, moving on. From GP, do you see? We've always said this,
yeah,
but we'll put it up anyway because GP's a nice guy.
yeah,
Would you? You just said coaching something you could look to do.
yeah,
I like the idea of the executive sports
yeah,
director. I
yeah,
think that's
yeah,
could see
yeah.
you in a shirt and tie rather than a. I like that. I like that.
Something
Is it?
different,
Is
isn't
it? Is it possible to still play the West Ham way in today's football?
it? Mad that we said about the West Ham way
Yeah.
with Sam. If it has anything to do with it, he wouldn't be having it. But of course it is, yeah. And I think that's why Potter as well is a good fit for West Ham, because I feel like once he gets the players, I guess, and the team that he kind of wants and he's happy with, then I feel like that will gradually come back. I think with time,
Hmm.
um, it just depends. It's a results based industry,
It
right?
is,
It
isn't
all
it? Yeah,
depends on that,
result and time, isn't it? And
Yeah, yeah.
time's not a premium nowadays in football, isn't it?
Nah,
Because of
exactly.
the money in the game. What we got here
Yeah.
from Tommy? You always seem to enjoy your time at West Ham and like to laugh. Can you recall a funny story from that period? I'm sure you probably could. You can be as rude as you want, but yeah.
Funny stories. There's probably so many funny stories. I remember when we were Cardiff, that great result in the was it the semi final of
Yeah.
the playoffs, and obviously we were still buzzing and stuff like that. And I remember Jack calling down from the bottom of the hotel, and he was he was just sort of around. There's like a little putting green up in Wales, and it was me, like, I think me, Nobes, and Creswell in the room, and I just picked up this orange, and it was pitch black. I couldn't see anything down below, and I was like, "Jack, heads up!" And I just chucked the orange, and I didn't even think anything of it. He come back in the room, and it was like had orange, like orange juice and pill on his head, and like all the lads were just couldn't stop laughing. But there's so many stories I could say. Obviously Nobes tells the one about the drone that he done outside.
Oh yeah. There's a question about Mark later on. Yeah, I
That's
mean the
quite
drone.
funny.
Yeah, the drone one.
The
That's
drone.
dug up again, isn't it? Because
Yeah,
of your
come up
retirement.
again, didn't it?
That's come
Yeah.
up a lot recently on my
I know, I
socials.
know.
I was like, oh, God. That
But
was
that
quite.
was
That was early doors, really. That was
yeah. For a
drones
drone,
and
yeah. I didn't know
yeah.
what was happening. I thought it was yeah. I thought something big was going on. I was just trying to pick anything up I could try and just throw it at the drone. And I can't believe the worst thing about it. He never told me. He didn't ring me up the next day and go, "Oh, Tonks, that was so funny, mate. Like what we did to you the other day." It just so happened that I found Andy. I think I just bumped into him, and he goes, "Oh, what about that drone?" I was like, "What do you mean that drone?" He goes, "Oh, that's it. It was Mark, and we were doing it." And they go, "You are you." I was like, "You." How have you not told me that? Do you know what I mean? That's a good story. To be fair, it
It
was.
is a good story. It
But
is one
there's
of
so many. There's so
it
many.
is, and I can imagine. Yeah, obviously we know quite a lot, particularly under the Sam, because obviously, we know Sam likes you to all go out to Dubai and do your summer training, and
Yeah.
we and I know how he operated in that world as well. So yeah, I mean, there's plenty for your memoirs, in it. There's plenty for your memoirs.
Yeah, there's
Um,
so many stories.
um, is Mark Noble really annoying? Says Jan,
Is he annoying?
or is he really funny, or is he both?
I could imagine like him being annoying to people, but he was in a funny way to all the lads. Everything was done for a laugh, and there was a lot of characters during that time. I remember Anton being a big character during the time I sort of broke into the first team. And there's things like there's like massive card school there as well, and all the lads that involved in that were quite big characters. Obviously, Roy Carroll was he was a character. Ted Sheringham was his smooth self, and trying to think of other characters. But yeah, Nobes was obviously one of the funniest during the time because everything was a prank. You know, everything was staff players. It didn't matter.
Who did you who did you, in terms of all the managers you played under at West Ham, who did you enjoy playing under the most? Was it Sam?
Yeah, I think most players would probably say that the manager that sort of liked them the most or played them the most. I guess
Makes
it's
sense.
quite it would just be easy for me to say that. But obviously with Zola, when he came in, I was almost in awe of some of the just his presence as well. And he was just such a nice man. So he kind of the whole package though for me probably was Sam, because as well, if he didn't like you, he's going to tell you. Like, at least you know where you stand with him. That's what side of the game I think managers can struggle with. Is over the years I've had managers that couldn't deal with dealing with the players that are probably left out. So the management skills are probably not great. Whereas Sam, at least if you won't play, he's going to tell you. And that was all you wanted as a player. You kind of want to know where you stand. If you didn't play, that's fair enough. But as long as you get told and everything, I think that's what we sort of like do appreciate.
Yeah, no, I get that.
Sam was probably
a straight shooter,
straight down the line.
Yeah, I think that's the
Old
best way, isn't it?
kind of thing.
Old school, yeah. Is there a club you would never have signed for, regardless of a deal, but on principle? Perhaps a neighbour of both West Ham and Crystal Palace. Just a suggestion. I think probably beginning with W and ending in Wall. Is there? I mean, I know it's all like just theoretical, but would there be a club? Would you sign? Would you have ever signed for Millwall if they came in for you?
No, I don't think I could. I don't think I
Yeah.
could look at a West Ham fan in.
Particularly all your mates as well, like the guys
exactly. Yeah, I can imagine getting in a cab. I don't think I'll be chucked out of cabs. Like, you know what I mean?
That's a good point. Yeah,
For
the
a
cab's
start.
right.
That was one connection actually when I was at Palace that I did have, because obviously in London, when you live anywhere in the vicinity of London, everyone just leaves you alone. But the one time I did have the connection still with West Ham was getting in cabs. I'd constantly get asked, "Oh, why did you leave? Oh, I didn't want you to leave," and it was kind of nice. But I don't think I would have, if I had signed for Millwall, it would have been a good thing for me.
Nah, but there's everyone forgets about the association with Billy Bonds and Millwall and people like that, But so everyone sort of like it's things that tend to drift away, in legend and history.
I don't know if that ever will do.
No, probably not if you turned up Millwall. Right, okay, let's get on to my Hammers 11, JT. So basically what we do, everyone we've had on, so we've had like Anton and Jack and all that lot on, they've given their Hammers 11, so we'll try and keep it to a 4-4-2 because that's the only graphic I've got. But the idea is it's players that you played with during your time at West Ham, and obviously 19 years, really, if you wanted to go really deep, and play. Although I won't have their pictures if they were under 8's goalkeeper.
I say it's not who I've played with. It's just my.
It's played with. You played with.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's what I mean. So everyone you played with over your time at West Ham. 19 years, 200 and something. Loads of appearances, and it's not necessarily the best players. It's maybe the players you enjoyed playing with or trained with and stuff like that. So we'll start between the sticks. A lot of goalkeepers you played under. Who would feature the Tomkins 11?
I don't know whether I played, because Robert Green was probably the one that I've had like probably more throughout my career. So for me to say him, I know a lot Adrian as well I had towards the end. So in terms of it's hard because they've both got, in fact they're both different, but I'd probably have to say Adrian on terms of his ability and what he did, and the connection, to be fair, that he did have with West Ham fans, because he was a bit crazy and he kind of played it well with the West Ham fans, to be honest.
Yeah, and I mean that's the game we were talking about yesterday.
Yeah,
Actually,
Everton
that
won the
yeah, the
Prem, is it?
Everton one, and just the
Yeah, yeah,
gloves off, and
yeah,
yeah, and it's great, and it's funny because he's obviously still has a sort of West Ham connection, playing in Betis, with obviously
yeah,
Fornals and Pellegrini, and
yeah.
I could see him coming back one day as like as Xavi's goalkeeper coach assistant or something like that. Just you could just see him coming
Yeah.
back, but yeah,
Yeah, he could
top man.
because he was he was he was good on his day. He was brilliant, to be honest, and his ability in training, like shooting practices and stuff like that. That was when he was in his element, really. He's get down low and stuff like that. That was for him. It was just normal. It was just where he probably a little bit was his kicking, but
Mm.
you know,
As a defender, what do you want in a goalkeeper? Because obviously at the moment we've got
yeah,
like a little bit of although Areola's like the number one and Fabianski's number two, but
yeah.
there was a little bit of jiggery pokery last year and this year. What do you want as a goalkeeper and as
Yeah,
a defender?
just assertive. You don't want an indecisive goalkeeper.
Mm.
Shouts one thing and then changes his mind. Uh, Away, no. Like just kind of have two things go. I've had
Yeah.
a few of them shouts. Keepers away, like you just kind of. What do you want me to do? You
Yeah.
just want to be an assertive and someone that's loud and clear. That is the most important, and it gives you confidence as well.
Yeah. Makes perfect sense. Right, let's go left back. Who's going to be your left back?
Um, I loved Conch when I first broke through, but I'll probably have to say Kreza. Conch had a great left foot. He had the best ping I've probably ever seen. But in terms of obviously as he's my mate as well. Kreza has been a great servant for the club.
Yeah.
The amount of games he's played and his transition from the Championship into Premier League football was he made it look easy, really. And it's not, that's the thing that just shows his ability. But he's in terms of his crossing ability, he was on the money every time.
Mm. And I mean, the fact is, he sort of has this. He sort of is. He has this sort of renaissance every sort of few years. So, like
Yeah,
as you said, under Slav particularly that last year at the bowling, and
yeah,
under obviously Sam as well. Left back, left back, left back. They're always putting that centre of the back three,
yeah,
and where he was sort of drifting out of the team, comes back
yeah,
into the team, and
hmm
again sort of is drifted out of the team, and then Potter's brought him back in.
yeah,
And
yeah,
it just shows you know that's 4 or 5 managers where he's been,
yeah.
the first a first team player, and as I
No,
said, whether this year's his last year or not. Obviously, he's out of contract this year. We'll
yeah.
wait and see. But
Who knows? Yeah, but
yeah, he's
he's been brilliant, hasn't he?
so many games for West Ham, so many
Yeah.
games for the Premier League as well.
And
Oh,
he just shows you with all these different managers, they see something in him because he's a top professional, training and everything. He'll give it all. That's
mm.
what you want.
Right, let's go right back. Let's go right back.
Yeah, I actually thought about it a little bit, and um, I'll probably have to say Lucas Nil
Mm.
because when he was captain as I was first breaking into the team,
Yeah,
but his game management was second to none. It was
yeah, I've heard about
unbelievable.
this.
All these little tricks he used to play, and you kind of learnt a lot from him. Like if you're
Mm.
winning 2-1 and there's 10, 15 minutes left, he was the man you wanted on your team because he would take the time. He would get abuse from like the fans that are obviously losing the game, and they'll be getting all kinds of stick. But he didn't bat an eyelid. He was just calm, and he was just took his time and everything. Whereas as a youngster looking in, sometimes you rush to get the ball. And he was like, no, no,
Yeah,
no, no, stop, don't relax. He was just the best at that, really.
I
And his
remember.
ability as well was he was good as
Good player.
well. That's the thing, and he could move to centre half, and he was good there as well.
And obviously, you did the other way round. Obviously, Slav would put you
Yeah,
right back quite often.
yeah.
Did you like playing right back, or did you
No,
prefer playing centre half?
I didn't really, mate. I didn't really. Too much running. Do you know what I mean? And it was the going forward part that that I obviously struggled with. I could defend, and I was more like a third centre half, really.
Yeah.
That's how I kind of played it, and I think that's what they wanted me at times to do that, especially if you're playing against a top team or a team that you're gonna have to defend a bit more with.
Mm.
But I remember having Lanzini in front of me a few times, and he probably made me look all right. And I was trying to get him to do all me running and everything, you know.
Yeah, I'll back you up. I'll just back you up.
Yeah,
You go ahead and
yeah.
go
I'll
on.
just
Yeah.
be here if you need me.
If you need me, I'm here. I'm here. Yeah, brilliant. Love it, love it. Yeah, Lucas. Yeah, we've had some good stories about him and how much of a proper
Top
captain he
captain.
was. Yeah,
Top
top
captain.
captain. Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, and Anton speaks very highly of him as well. Well, let's go centre half. Obviously, who are we going to have in your centre halves?
Yeah, it's hard because as being a centre half, I kind of appreciate every centre half that I've kind of, you know, seen and played with.
Yeah.
And I appreciate their qualities in different aspects. Like it's obviously hard to leave out a few names and a few legends probably at
Well,
West Ham in this,
we
but
have as always the way you play with so many people. We can have honourable mentions, so we
yeah,
can say,
yeah, I can
I
still
would have
mention.
picked. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So when I was growing up, I looked up to Danny Gabaldon. So I'd
Mm,
have Danny Gabaldon in the team because that year that he got Player of the Year,
yeah.
like him and Anton, but Gabaldon for me, he just stood out like a, he was unbelievable that season. And I looked at him, he had everything. He was great in the air. He had pace, great on the ball. He just oozed class for me, and he turned into my mate when I was obviously at West Ham going through, and I really looked up to him, and he was brilliant for me.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And I mean, yeah, I think he was one of those ones. Like, obviously, we bought him and Ginge at the same time, didn't we? And it was
yeah,
almost, and then
yeah.
Ginge developed later on, and Gabs obviously,
That's it. That's it.
was I
That
think
that
one of those.
partnership was brilliant.
Amazing, wasn't it? And it made perfect sense. You just bought a partnership from another
Yeah,
club.
yeah,
You don't
yeah,
have
yeah.
to. I mean, how long does it take you if you had a new centre off with you?
Hmm.
To have that relationship and get that. That must
Yeah,
take a long time in terms of developing that.
yeah, for sure. There's some players that I've played with, and I never got it. I've never
Mm,
got that relationship, and they were good players, and I just kind of never got that connection. But and then some different centre halves you would just click, and then somehow you would. It's just what brings out the best in you, I think.
mm.
I think with Reedy, well, like I said, with the good partnership we had was, and obviously he'll probably be partner with Gabs in my
That's what I
team.
would imagine. Oh yeah. I was sort of alluding to that. We're getting to Reader.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, yeah,
So it's just someone who you kind of bounce off a little bit, and
mm,
like, just for instance, Ginger and Gabs. Gabs was obviously the one on the ball. He was, and then Ginger was more like the tougher guy look from the
yeah.
outside looking in, and but they both chucked themselves in front of the ball. They just had a good understanding, which was good. And I felt bad for leaving out Ginge and probably Anton, who was obviously I made my debut with. But
Mm,
them two for me, yeah, they sort of just stood out a bit more,
yeah. And obviously, again, it was slightly sort of not bittersweet, but obviously, Winston scoring the last goal.
really. Yeah,
And again, just like that accolade, he'll go down in history. You'll all go down in
yeah,
history as the last team to have played at Upton Park and stuff. And
yeah,
yeah, and again, you mentioned about your injuries and
yeah,
where could have Winston played if he hadn't
yeah.
got
He
injured?
was getting linked, wasn't he, to
Well,
to
your
all the
season
big
really
boys?
wasn't your season in the
Yeah,
Championship.
yeah,
Liverpool, Arsenal, they were all looking at him.
yeah, yeah,
Never
yeah,
made the move, and then obviously injuries
yeah.
basically
That's it.
curtailed his career. Unfortunately, as always the way it
Yeah,
seems with West
that's
Ham
a
players.
shame, isn't it? It is a
Real
shame
shame.
because he was brilliant. He had everything in that aggressive nature that he had, which kind of what you want as a partner. And you bounce off that. That's when I was talking about
Mm,
where you bounce off when you see your centre half partner going in tight and being aggressive. It kind of makes you want to do the same, and you have that sort of understanding in the game, which is good because you look at your partner, and if he's not giving you something that you want to see, kind of, I don't know, it's just like an automatic thing that you just want to
yeah.
see that, and he was brilliant at that, and it was a great servant for West Ham for sure.
Yeah, he was a long time he played for West Ham.
Yeah.
Right, okay, let's go into midfield now. Let's go. Let's go left wing.
Left wing. Um, I'm guessing either wing it don't matter, but obviously Dimmy Dimmy was obviously brilliant. Payet,
Mm,
he was the standout player that I've probably come across over the years in terms of his ability. There's one at Palace, but he was definitely ability wise almost frightening. Some of the
mm,
stuff he could do. And game day, he just turned it on even more. Sometimes in training, he would kind of be sort of going through his paces a little bit at times, not all the time, but a little bit. And then as soon as the game comes in, he just turned into, a machine. I mean, some of the stuff he does, it was just crazy. And the
Yeah.
goals he scored, like you look back on all the goals that he's scored, it's just phenomenal. Yeah, and it's just a shame how he ended it, but you could never take that away what he done on the pitch. It was brilliant.
Yeah, no, true. And I think now there's, obviously he's looking great actually. Playing in Vasco da Gama at the moment in Brazil, and he looks physically fantastic. I mean, I think the stars aligned, didn't they? That year we had, when's the next time we're going to have a Ballon d'Or nominated player at West Ham? I mean, it's like he was special, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And we never used. I think. Obviously you came through the academy with a lot of the other boys, but we never seemed to have bought players who were in their prime. I used to call them bookends. They were either at the beginning or they were at the end, like Teddy Sheringham or someone like that. And Payet, we basically bought him in his peak years.
Yeah. It was just whether that he could do it in the Prem, right?
Yeah.
That was the biggest thing for him, and he certainly did, didn't he? He was just
it was fascinating. As I said, we had Slav on a couple of weeks ago, and we were talking to him, and he knew of Payet, and he's a player he wanted. And then the chairman basically said to him, he said, "Well, I've got this guy being offered to me. His name's Dimitri Payet." He went, "Yes." So he's like, I couldn't fucking believe it.
Really,
I got this like a toy at Christmas, but top player. As I said, I think he added to that season. I don't think the season would have been as great if he'd not been there.
No,
right,
for sure.
Top man. Let's. Who's going to be the other winger then?
I mentioned him before when I used to play right back, so probably Lanzini. I'd probably have to say Manuel, because I know he can kind of drift inside, but I'd put him on that other wing, because for me when
you played with him,
and him and Payet for me were the outstanding players in terms of they could turn a game easily, single-handedly. And I think Manuel probably didn't get the recognition that probably Payet did that season.
Agreed.
Or whatever. Yeah, but now I think because the fans know, and they certainly appreciated how good he was. And for me, it was just brilliant playing in front of him. He made me look a half decent right back.
I mean, he's still playing at River Plate, isn't he? And I mean, he's again, we do say it quite a lot, but harpered by injury. You got to think how long he actually was injured at West Ham. It's a shame, because again, he was being linked to the likes of Liverpool and stuff. Particularly when he moved to the London Stadium. But we'll put Manu in. Central midfield, first centre midfielder.
Nose was brilliant. Obviously, the best servant of West Ham's had for God knows how long, right? And as a guy as well, for me growing up, looking up to him, and we had good times and bad times. Obviously, I've had a few Barneys on the pitch together, but it's all in good. It was all for the right reasons, and we just kind of he was just brilliant for the team, and you kind of knew what you're going to get with him week after week, and the most consistent performer in the Premier League. That's the hardest thing for me, is consistency, and he had that in abundance, and he was just brilliant.
Yeah, and I think obviously the facts of being still in the club, and we seem to as I said, we've signed the likes of Ollie to a long-term deal, and Lewis, and people like that as well, and he's having a big impact with that academy, definitely. And
it's good to see him with the academy, because it's massively important for obviously West Ham, because there's such a history with it. It just needs to continue that, and I'm glad he's there, because there's no better person for that role than him, so it's perfect fitting, really.
There is a real. I mean, obviously, I do the stuff for the academy, and you can tell. I think as soon as Potter came in, there was and obviously with Ollie being more integrated into the first team, there's a real buzz there. There is a real buzz there, great. And it's really. And obviously, you got Zavon still involved. You got Colton involved. You got Stevie Potts. You got Mark Robson. You got got Conch. No, Conch's not bad. Freddie Sears is now involved in the under 12s, isn't he?
There as well,
It's brilliant. It's brilliant to
That's
see.
good to see. There's no room for me there,
Well, there's no room. I was speaking to Yoshi Benayoun the other day, and it was like
well, he was a great guy. Yeah.
he's looking to get into football. And I was
Oh,
like,
was he? Is he? Yeah.
well, he's thinking about, and I said,
Yeah. Yeah.
I'll have a word with Kenny and see if we can. So, dear, I should get a fucking job centre. I should be like, but yeah, no,
he's one of them that was probably, if I'd have probably played with him another season, he'd have definitely been in my team. His ability,
definitely,
Yossi, was incredible.
yeah, great player.
Like one of the best players that I've certainly played with, for sure. It's just the fact that I probably didn't have enough
He didn't play with me that much.
games with him. Yeah, I didn't. But he was brilliant.
Oh, he was mustard. He was mustard as a player. Who's Nobe's going to partner in that midfield?
For me, it's probably the first name on the team sheet for me, and that was Scotty Parker.
Robert Kovac. What? Sorry, I'm sorry.
Scott Parker. Scott Parker. He's
Yeah.
he's the easiest one for me because when I was growing up, he was. I looked up to obviously knows because he's an academy boy, but he's probably the one that I looked up to the most because great guy, great around sort of like the younger lads as well. But what he put into training and the games was it was phenomenal, really, and he kept us up single-handedly for me for a couple of seasons, and the 2 seasons in a row, I think he got Player of the Year. And
it's 3. I think 3 got
yeah, 3. Yeah, it was just he was head and shoulders above anyone, and he kept us up. Literally, just him. Some of his goals were so important, but some not just that, but his ability in centre midfield was incredible. Honestly, it was brilliant.
I used to remember seeing him like in the car park afterwards, almost crawl into the car.
Yeah,
He'd put so much on. It was amazing.
Yeah.
And obviously, the season we went down at Park, obviously, he wasn't the captain.
Yeah.
Matty was the captain, but Parker was the main driver. And from a fan's perspective, we forget that actually he weren't the captain. It was Matty. And again, he's just a very incredible person as well.
Some players don't need that armband sometimes to prove that they're, he led by example. He was one of them players, right? He would go and do this mad run of closing down 2 or 3 players and winning the ball, and then the fans, what that does for the fans, it just lifts the whole team. He was that kind of player,
Yeah, no, he's top man. Yeah, and nice tasty midfield there. Up front, first striker.
Yeah, probably Dean Ashton, because I didn't play enough with him, but from what I saw in terms of like his finishing is actually, I've always said it throughout my career, his finishing was the best I've seen.
Oh yeah.
Like his one-touch finishing and his placement of headers and volleys, and he had it all really. It's obviously so sad to when he obviously had to finish because of his foot, but I remember seeing him break down in training a few times. It was just it was hard to see because of what that guy could do in front of the goal. Was obviously Kev Nolan was a great finisher, but this guy was like
different class.
Unbelievable. So he was definitely he had it all, didn't he? He had it all because people think his size, he could hold it up, but his technical ability was
he literally
was unfair, isn't it?
He was the perfect striker. You think nowadays you look at the likes of Haaland and people like that, and how Haaland sort of completely ran the Premier League. You got to think. As you said, he could obviously, he's still in his locker. Obviously, the Nobes testimonial. We've got the bicycle kick, but even the Man City game in the semi-finals where he did the bicycle, over the head and turns, and he had it all.
United one, on the United
he had it all, man, in his locker. It was just, again, you look at these, Lanzinis, Gabardons, Reeds, just injuries. You think where these players could, I think if Ashton didn't have injury, I think he'd end up being an England number 9 alongside Rooney,
100%,
and probably would have been at Man United with Rooney as well. Because
had 50, 100 games for England easy.
Without a problem, without a shadow of a doubt, without blinking. Who's he going to partner? Who's going to be the last piece of this Tomkins pie?
Probably Bella's Madman.
Oh, nice.
He was he was crazy. Obviously, you probably heard all the stories about him, but what he did have was he was obsessed with football for a start.
Yeah,
and
I've heard that. Yeah,
and professionalism, he was incredible. Like he would straight in after training, go gym for an hour, put it into where most players wouldn't. They'd rather rest or have a massage. He was completely different. He was just driven to get better and better, and that's obviously you looked up to as a kid. Sometimes he would shout and call you out in training and stuff like that. But actually, looking back, it was all in good heart. I think he kind of cared, and that was his way of showing that he cared. Because he was brilliant, and he got the move off the back of being so good for West Ham.
And I think them two up front, if Dino had stayed fit, them two up front would have been, a phenomenal partnership, and that was obviously the plan. And you can see that now. I was listening to someone on Talk Sport, and he was saying how he was one of Craig's, same as you, one of his teammates, and just said how much he wanted to know everything about football. He was despite the fact that they said being a madman, technically he was so, just wants to know everything, and obviously doing a great job for Wales now.
I see that. Yeah, it's good to see him obviously being manager and stuff, and the team there looks. I'm quite happy with it, to be honest. Because
ain't a bad side in their pomp, innit? In their pomp, that ain't bad at all. Very, very good side. Mate, it's been an absolute pleasure. It's been an absolute pleasure. Literally an hour, and I didn't even realise an hour and 10 had gone, mate, which is always a good sign of a good interview.
No,
and I mean, look at that. The many faces of James Tomkins.
You can pour a facial. I know that.
You can, yeah. I mean, I didn't purposely go for them, but yeah, you have.
They're the best ones. Can you imagine the other one?
Yeah, these were the edited versions. What out of those shirts? I remember talking to someone, and some of the shirts they fucking hated wearing. Was there any of those shirts that you wore which you thought, oh, I hate them? Didn't feel right. The collar didn't feel right, or I didn't like that Macron, that bottom.
I was just going to say, when Macron first came on, it was a bit baggier, and the shirt didn't fit so well. But they've changed that now, and they're a lot better. But the Adidas one with the collar's probably my favourite.
Yeah, but then the trouble is we did go through that period where I called it the patch era, where the sponsor would leave and they would just stick a patch on it,
just patch over the top. I know. Yeah. Was that the betting firms? Was it?
Yeah. Alpari was a currency trader, and that went out, and then they slapped a Betway sticker on it.
It's so bad, didn't it? It looks
best one. There was a best one. It was 𝙀𝙬𝘏, and I don't know if it was one of these ones. I can't remember which one it was. It might have been. He's there. The second left.
Yeah,
at the top.
Yeah.
But they squeezed 𝙀𝙬𝘏 onto this thing, and it just looked so shit because you'd sweat.
You could still see it underneath.
Yeah, but you'd sweat, and you'd almost they had. I remember once they had a claret patch on a claret shirt, but because you were sweating, all we just saw was the claret. This club, seriously, this club. But I remember because at XL Holidays they had it on top of the East Stand, so when you were flying over Stansted, you could see it, and then they went out of. Oh dear. That's the show in itself. All the sponsors that have left West Ham.
I know. There's been a few.
And the money men. Obviously, you had the biscuit barons during your time, and Eggy and all that stuff as well.
Yeah.
Oh god. Anyway, mate, it's been an absolute pleasure.
Thanks for having me.
Obviously, you're doing the podcast of X and Dave, aren't you, on the West Ham Way on a month?
Yeah. So I've agreed to do that with them. So that'll be quite fun. Obviously, the good guys, and I've done something with them recently as well. So that was quite good. And obviously it's nice, just nice to speak to some of the fans now that I kind of I've finished. You kind of want to give that, not chance, but kind of just want to kind of give a little bit back and just kind of have that communication level where I've not been on social media for a long time, but obviously I was on it just to announce my retirement. So now obviously I'm back on there. It kind of gives me that chance as well. So.
Yeah, you're not hamstrung by media departments anymore now, so it's like I know fucking too well about that. But anyway, mate, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you very, very much for your time. I'll kick you out, so don't worry, mate, about leaving. I'll kick you out of here. There we go. I'll kick you out. Take care, Bob. See you soon, man.
Cheers.
Thank you. And that was James Tomkins. What a lovely, lovely, lovely man. As I said, if you're new around to the channel, don't forget to like, comment, share. Obviously, if you like what Tom just go. I think it's on X's Patreon, and they're going to be doing regular podcasts with him as well. And yeah, hope you enjoyed it. Hope you had your questions asked. Now, if you didn't submit a question and you're a channel member, next Thursday we've got another interview, another My Hammers 11 interview, and I'll release the date of I'll release the person who it is on the West Ham members section of the YouTube thing. But until next time, my friends, take care, everyone. Stay safe, stay warm, stay humble. Have a lovely, lovely rest of the West Ham week, West Ham free weekend, and I'll see you soon. Much love. Bye bye.